I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Andrii Buvailo. Andrii, welcome.
Thank you, Kate, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. I'd like today to provide you with some highlights and insights that we uncovered about the AI-driven evolution of pharma industry to meet global challenge, which is COVID-19. Essentially, we'll go over some specific use cases where companies in various different areas of the pharma industry apply AI technologies and basically trying to accelerate and meet the global challenge. And as we all know, the pandemics have taken us all by storm and basically created the unprecedented disruption in all activities globally. That's basically one of the reasons we are now talking today about the AI. Why is that? Because AI is something that is basically, this is the technology of speed. This is the technology of real-time exploration of data. And so the very nature of the problem that we are encountered with the COVID-19 pandemics is basically a problem that can potentially be solved using various AI techniques. And by the way, just to start this presentation, there's a nice and interesting fact that Canadian startup developed a platform, Blue Dot, which was able to spot the coming pandemics several days before the actual official announcement by analyzing data about unusual pneumonia cases happening in China. And unfortunately, this fact did not help very much to react, but this is something that should very well illustrate the where we should be developing the AI systems in future to meet future pandemics. But anyway, let's come back to the artificial intelligence. This technology is fairly old. It originated somewhere in the middle of the last century, and till the 20,000s and the last decade, the technology was fairly theoretical in nature. But owing to the development of different computational technologies, mostly cloud-based infrastructures and algorithmic developments, the AI is now a mainstream technology, which is widely commercialized and has very real practical life applications. The pharma industry was a late adopter, so to speak, for this kind of technologies. And we at our company estimated that the alpha go moment for the pharmaceutical AI was somewhere around 2018, 2019, when a lot of biotechs basically started showing some tangible results of applying AI technologies, deep learning in particular, for therapeutics discovery, and then actually started showing some tangible results. And in 2020, 21 and onward, the technology is maturing now towards different commercial applications. And as I said, the pandemics is a big data problem. Why is that? Because it touches millions of people, and therefore billions of data points are collected in various aspects, from all the way from tracing pandemics to pharmacovigilance, surveillance, to medical applications, etc. Millions and billions of data points are gathered rapidly to monitor this whole thing going on. And AI systems help basically analyze and make sense of the whole lot of data. The applications of AI for tackling COVID pandemics fall into three major areas. Like we will cover today the molecular scale, which is drug discovery, accelerating drug discovery, vaccine discovery and development, and different biological research problems. Then clinical scale, which is everything that touches upon, patient outcome prediction, diagnostics, rapid diagnostics, screening of potential COVID-affected people in streets, etc. And then societal scale, it's a very wide area where AI is applied for different operational societal problems like modeling, forecasting, clustering of different affected areas, regions, and even tracing hate speech related to, COVID and all that sort of things. And today I'd like to focus a little bit on the medical applications where AI is applied specifically in focusing on the coronavirus pandemic. So this is the therapeutic discovery vaccines. This is diagnostics and medical applications, various digital health and infrastructural applications, and statistics, forecasting, everything that touches upon epidemiological modeling and prediction of further developments of things. We have profiled the area and identified a lot of companies. This list is far from being, comprehensive. It's just some fairly notable companies with high visibility. But even this basically illustrates how diverse the landscape of the applications is. So in terms of therapeutic discovery and basic biology, we have profiled before the landscape of AI companies which developed therapeutics. And in particular, we have found that around more than 50% of all the companies that have been applying AI for years, they managed to refocus and basically on the COVID-related tasks like either inhibitor discovery or different other applications to tackle the research part of the COVID problem. And so it tells how flexible the AI-based companies are, how flexible it is to rebuild models and basically forward resources into the ongoing need. Probably one of the strongest cases here is the repurposing, and also there are a number of companies who use AI to generate molecules from scratch. So here are just a couple of examples. And by the way, over the year, some of those companies managed to actually demonstrate some pretty amazing results. Like, for example, AI first company, Benevolent AI, managed to rapidly identify a quite nice drug candidate early in the 2020, baricitinib, and then it just published news days ago that it reduced deaths in hospitalized COVID patients by 38%. That was the Eli Lilly's clinical trial. And another quite interesting example is AI Therapeutics, which is now having the candidate in phase 2 clinical study, which is also quite interesting. And they all use so-called knowledge graphs infrastructure to modeling to predict their candidates, to find targets and predict candidates. And this is one of the most interesting application cases. Another interesting case is in silica medicine, which managed to identify a number of candidates in just several days. There was also Repurpose AI, which partnered with the Scripps Research to leverage their AI-based platform to suggest some quite notable hits. And so this list is very short. It's just introduction to what is going on in this area. But interestingly, a number of lockdowns and a number of disruptions in the people's usual working hours, it resulted in the industry shifting towards robotized and remote modes of experimentation. And this is one interesting trend to reflect on. And for a number of companies here, they develop remotely controlled labs where biological research can be done. And we believe, and Deep Pharma intelligence, we believe that this trend will be accelerating even after the pandemic is over, because this is really cost efficient and a new way of doing research. In terms of vaccines and vaccination, that's probably the most important trend in the biotech industry is, of course, vaccination. Everybody's talking about vaccines, and this is probably the most important part of what is happening. And here I would start with that AI is indeed used by many research labs, and a lot of research is going on to apply AI to tackle vaccine development and vaccine discovery by providing data and analyzing omics data, etc. But even big guys like Pfizer, they actually use some machine learning stuff to accelerate research in the very early days when the pandemic just hit and they needed to act really fast. But I would say that AI has very marginal role in the vaccine development in terms of research. But much bigger role, much more important is actually the operational role and the actual vaccination process, identification of the supply and demand, and predicting responses, pharmacovigilance, how vaccines react with patients and where risks emerge. All kinds of things that are happening after the vaccine is already shipped, so to speak, from the lab. And here AI is applied to triage and impact modeling, figuring out which patient populations should be vaccinated in the first turn to save, let's say, doses, demand forecasting, supply chain management, and post-vaccination surveillance. So these are all major areas. The vaccination is a business, and the industry is a very complex thing, and a lot of data here needs to be analyzed in real time or very rapidly to be able to make sense of what's happening. And a lot of companies are actually already applying AI to tackle some of these use cases. Just briefly go through some of them. ABN is planning to cooperate with hospitals, US hospitals, using a system to manage vaccine distribution. Company MacroEyes combines open source data to estimate load on vaccine distribution spots in Africa. And by the way, they combine a lot of data sources, even satellite data from cell phones, social media activity, government data, and everything is together is analyzed to sort of predict the vaccination, where the resources should go. And so they have fairly cool results, so to speak. GenPact in the UK created AI-based vaccine batch and lot tracking system to basically solve the problem, optimize the supply chain for this process. And another interesting use case is that in the UK, the GenPact basically deployed a system which is based on the artificial intelligence. It is processing the reports, the patient reports, like yellow cards, where the system is trying to find unspotted, side effects, unspotted patterns in how vaccines actually work in patients, maybe some risks, etc., etc. And finally, there are some, so to speak, digital health tools to support the ecosystem, which connects patients to doctors, to vaccination facilities, and tracks everyone, etc. So it's very nice to have this kind of interconnectivity and real-time capability of the analytics. This is what AI is all about. Diagnostics and surveillance is another major area for the application. Here we have just thousands of use cases. We will not go over everything here, but just to note that a lot of FDA approvals have been done in this area for the Philips, Vida, Mayo Clinics, etc. Quite creative use cases emerge, like, for example, trying to identify the affected COVID patients by coughing, and where the mobile application essentially analyzes the sound and then can quite realistically predict the risks of the patient being actually ill. Analyzing CT scans to differentiate COVID pneumonia from different types of pneumonias, which is not a trivial task. And integration of different data types like CT scans together with other clinical test results to find false negative cases which were not spotted by people, by doctors. And even cases like high throughput screening of people using a variety of, thermal screening data and different breathing rate change, etc. Even such things which are quite difficult or impossible to process by humans in any form, they can be processed by AI systems which spot the patterns, some unusual difference in the data, and can alarm the risk. And a lot of use cases here with the supplying, with the prioritizing vaccine rollouts and assessing the risks of severe cases in COVID affected patients versus, let's say, moderate or asymptomatic cases. And of course, an interesting fact that contact tracing using digital tools and AI is a big thing, and basically the programs have been rolled out in many places across the world already, and a lot of those systems use a real-time AI and centralized data analytics system to sort of understand what's going on. So key takeaways from this presentation, this is a very short one, but we have analyzed a lot of data, a lot of use cases internally, and we found that, first of all, COVID-19 indeed catalyzed the AI adoption rate in pretty much every medical area, from drug discovery to clinical research, production, logistics, especially pharmacovigilance and healthcare services. Even connecting doctors to patients can be facilitated by AI predictive systems. But I would say that the progress rate is much higher in healthcare related stuff rather than in the basic biology research. This is of course logical because the real-time data it's a lot of that data, whereas the biological data is kind of hard to procure and train models. Another takeaway that a lot of AI-based projects were emerged and were advertised at the beginning of the last year. It's not actually, some projects are not mature enough right now to kind of affect the pandemic's outlook. But we believe that those projects will mature and become more widespread and more adopted within a couple of years from now. And then the next pandemics might be much more efficiently addressed. And so, yeah, so a lot of results are yet to be seen in the AI application, but the conclusions here are that there's basically the time to invest in this area, and the investment is going on right now really rapidly. A lot of new projects emerge, and most importantly, the area is becoming crowded with non-specific investors, not necessarily investors that used to be in biotech, but now they're coming to this area. And then a lot of MVP level projects will be maturing this year to become businesses or spin out startups from research labs. So the area is really going to shine, to boom this year and the year ahead. And yeah, so with that, I'd like to say that we are open to strategic collaboration on joint analytics, and not only in the coronavirus, but in other areas like stem cells and any other emerging topics in the pharmaceutical research. And with that, I'd like to conclude the presentation. Thank you.
Andrii, thank you very much for this insightful presentation.